I don't know if I'm being paranoid, but I think a stranger is deliberately wearing the same outfit as me. I fear him more than any other human on Earth. I was a complete moron for staying at the summit as long as I did, no doubt about that. By the time I started back, the sky had turned dark indigo and the distant peaks were silhouettes. The slope carried me across a crest on the side of a giant mountain. There was a steep drop along both sides, and with every step I took, pebbles broke off the trail. You could tell it was a long way down by the sound they made tumbling into the fog, out of sight. I tried not to think about the jagged rock beds waiting for me at the bottom. Yep, no doubt about it, I was an absolute idiot. On the way up, a bunch of experienced hikers warned me about hanging about too long, said dusk would roll around fast. If only I'd listened. Over the course of the next 30 minutes, the sky turned from purple to black, and this silvery mist drifted across the landscape, limiting my visibility to 30 meters or so. It started feeling claustrophobic, despite being outside and all, and I kept second-guessing whether I'd actually come that way. That's not even mentioning the jerky winds and the weight of my pack, which by now felt much heavier than 15 pounds. My phone couldn't get a signal but worked okay as a flashlight. I waved it in low-ux while doing some quick sums in my head. The climb took 3 hours, accounting for water breaks, and I'd only started down 45 minutes earlier. Yeah, no matter what way you sliced it, there was a long way to go. The ridge swung left, then right, then left again. At some points it became so wide 4 people could march along side by side. At other times I almost had to do an impression of a tightrope walker. Thanks to the gusts of wet air, I didn't hear the footsteps until they were close by. By that stage my light barely dented the fog, which looked thicker than gruel. I stopped, listened closely. Just a gust of wet air. I started along again. 10 seconds later a huge pebble cascaded noisily into a ditch up ahead. Did another moron hang around too long? Maybe they had a phone that wasn't a complete piece of shit and could actually get signal. "Hello?" I shouted. No reply. Only more air. I broke into a jog. If I could catch up with another hiker, one who felt more confident about the route, my electrified nerves could take a rest, at least. A blob took shape in the mist. I repeatedly shouted hello as it morphed into the outline of a figure, roughly my height. I yelled for their attention, arms waving overhead. They waved back. Already feeling the hardness in my stomach melt away, I eased into a trot and said, "You have no idea how happy I am there's somebody else up here." For a minute I thought I'd gone the wrong way. From that distance, I could tell they were facing me. I said, "Is this the fastest route back to?" As the figure became clearer against that icy sheet, both it and I froze, our arms suspended in midair. Slowly, I let my left hand drop against my side. The shadow did the same. I stepped forward, then back, then off to the side. It did as well. I was staring at my own silhouette. Okay, there had to be a scientific explanation for this. Didn't I read about broken specters once? Yeah, they're the shadow of an observer cast in midair upon any type of cloud opposite a strong light source. Makes sense. I took a single step forward. So did the shade. That was fine. You'd expect that to happen. Trick of the light and all. I took another, slow step. Then another. And another. Up ahead, the figure emerged from the fog. Now, I could make out navy hiking trousers, a red woolly hat, a fluorescent jacket, and a black backpack. The same outfit as me. After another cautious step I saw strands of dark hair poking out beneath the hat, along with a set of green eyes, and the thin, dented nose that had greeted me in the bathroom mirror every morning since my 10th birthday, when I busted my face trying to do a wheelie on my new bike. The figure wasn't my silhouette, it was a carbon copy. I lifted my right leg. Other me did the same. My left hand whipped from side to side, twisted at the wrist, testing whether that thing imitated these movements. It did. I swallowed a gulp. "Hello?" The duplicate's mouth moved, although no word came out. For a while, we stood there frozen in place, a showdown. As I punched the number for mountain rescue into my phone, my counterpart tapped the air with its forefinger. I still couldn't get a signal. Okay, so this wasn't a trick of the light. Did that mean I'd lost my mind? I opened the camera app and snapped some pictures. The results were all blurred because my stupid hands wouldn't quit shaking. My brain swung back and forth on whether there was actually a person in those photos. I decided that even if the thing was real, which it wasn't, the trail ahead looked too risky anyway. If I kept going, I'd slip and fall. Then, in the morning, one of those early bird hikers would find me impaled on a rock. Or maybe they'd spot other me first, and summon mountain rescue to cart the body off in a helicopter, maybe even arrange a little funeral. I shook these thoughts away. There was zero chance I'd arrive by that path. I needed to double back and find the right one. I backstepped until the fog swallowed my counterpart, spun around, and followed the ridge up and up, leg muscles burning. The temperature continued to drop. Soon the air felt like acid in my lungs, and my ears began burning. I'd wasted too much time already. I needed to get off the mountain and someplace warm. After a 15-minute jog, my pack bouncing up and down on my shoulders, the ridge connected with a Y-shaped slope. This time, I took the other route. The new trail felt more familiar, steadier. I broke into a run, confident I'd be back at the hostel sipping hot chocolate in no time. But soon the edges of the walkway tapered off. I slowed my pace, mindful not to slip, and as I did there came a shuffle of steps up ahead. And then, like before, a silhouette filled the blank sheet of fog. Okay, this had to be my imagination. There was no other plausible explanation. My arms shot up and down, confirming the doppelganger still mimed these actions. It did. I couldn't decide whether that was a good or bad thing. The silhouette stood there, mouth all tight, eyes narrow. What the hell did I do now? I weighed my options for a while before giving the phone a few more tries, even held it way up overhead. Still nothing. I was cut off. Isolated. Alone. I'll go slow, I kept telling myself. If I turned sideways, me and other me could slip right by one another. Right. What other option was there? Wait until frostbite set in. I shuffled along, my pulse banging between my ears. One slow, unsteady step followed another. But then, when only 20 meters of trail separated us, I froze. What the hell was I thinking? I'd seen this horror movie a million times before. Better to stay perched at the summit until dawn rather than let this scene play out, even if it meant risking hypothermia. My clone stood there with its face tensed. I doubled back, frequently glancing over my shoulder until the figure melted into the gloom, and then jogged back toward the summit. The temperature plunged even further. Now icy fingers caressed the back of my neck, massaged my earlobes. To my horror, the silhouette appeared up the stony hill 5 minutes later. Despite already knowing what was about to happen, I continued on until the clone drifted into view. I spun around, sprinted back. I'd let the fear and panic disorient me, that's all. It wasn't long before the footsteps started up again. Another 10 strides and the silhouette re-emerged. Still in denial, I went back and forth 6 times. With every turn, my counterpart appeared sooner and sooner. Now I couldn't go 5 minutes without hearing pebbles crunch under heavy boots. This had to be a nightmare. I pounded my temples, clomped my feet, and told myself to wake up, wake up, wake up. My counterpart mimicked these actions. The wind bit into my extremities. Now simply holding the phone took a concentrated effort. My swollen red fingers looked fatter than plump sausages. My only option was passing the replica. But hey, it was only a phantom, right? A figment of my imagination. Maybe in the future I'd visit a doctor, explain what happened, and they'd reveal I had a brain tumor. I drew chilled air into my lungs and then shuffled along, inch by terrible inch. Soon there were only 20 meters between us. 15, 10. I slowed way down. Then, as the two of us closed in one another, I pivoted inward, facing the left side of the drop-off. My mirror image swung right, our heels hovering over the edge of the pits. At that distance, we'd still have been able to reach out and shake hands. Not ideal. I took a single sideward step, then another, and another, and, as we drifted closer, the corners of my companion's mouth turned up. After 2 more steps I could make out the beginnings of a smirk. My feet remained locked in place as my top half leaned forward. For every inch that closed between me and it, that mouth grew wider, spreading into a full-on Artois grin. An invisible ice pick stabbed my insides. I sidestepped in reverse, my peer's face reverting to a look of terror, followed by confusion. Once we reached a safe distance I tried making a fist but couldn't. Pressing forward was my only option. After failing to get my breathing under control, I sidestepped along, quicker this time, my arms up in a T-pose. As the distance shrunk, my counterpart's lips curled back, revealing a smile so wide and deep you could count the individual teeth. Except, they didn't look like my teeth, more like yellow canines surrounded by black gums. The figure's eyes widened and flicked about, as though it had been looking forward to this moment for years. "Come a little closer," the expression said. "I promise I'm not gonna hurt you." I couldn't retreat again. Not unless I wanted the authorities to tell my family they discovered 2 identical icicles. In an attempt to create more space, I edged so far back that only my toes remained on solid ground. That grinning bastard did the same. My entire body tensed up, hard. I hunched forward, my head down and to the side. Just a few more steps. But now there was something happening to other me. The flesh along its cheeks began bubbling, and dark patches grew across the neck and forehead. The facial muscles jerked and twitched, going crazy with spasms, laughing soundlessly. Pink froth shot out of that opened mouth and sprayed across my cheeks. Its warm, rancid breath made a moist sickness slide up my throat. One more step and we'd come face to face. I clenched my jaw and forced myself to press on. And, as our heads aligned, the skin on the face opposite mine tore away, as though gouged by invisible fingernails. Soon there was only exposed cartilage and veins, with patches of bone shining through. The 2 of us stared at each other, our breaths perfectly synchronized. For a moment I thought I was about to make it, that I just had to order my legs to take 1 more step. But then my twin's head rattled from side to side, swaying too far in either direction as if loose at the neck. Without meaning to, I yelped, felt my balance go, and then windmilled both arms around. My counterpart did the same. This action carried both our bodies over opposite sides of the trail. Beneath my boots, clods of dirt broke apart and tumbled into the void. For a moment I became weightless, but, at the very last second, my numb hands shot out and fumbled for the trail. By some miracle, I held on. With barely working fingers I clawed my way back to solid ground, so happy to be alive I almost forgot about the mimic. It took a few seconds before my brain kicked in and screamed, "Wriggle sideways." I did this while still hoisting myself back up and then belly crawled along, down summit. When there were a few meters between me and my counterpart, I scrambled to my feet, still breathless, and backstepped away. Other me retreated in the opposite direction until the fog enveloped him, and then I spun on my heels and tore down the trail. Within minutes the slope widened. I started half running, half falling, but my legs refused to slow down, even when the path connected with the valley below. Whenever the first signpost for the hostel appeared, I almost cried. I found a black envelope with a white skull on my nightstand, shortly after a ticking started against my window. So, let's start with the least interesting part. Yesterday, at around 1900 hours, I came home from a long day at work. It was already dark. After watching TV for an hour or 2 I started getting really tired, so I decided it was time to go to bed. When I entered my room, my eyes fell on my nightstand. There was an envelope there. Not just an ordinary envelope. It was a pitch black envelope with a white skull on it. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I live alone. So I am the only one that has the keys for this house. Also, the envelope certainly wasn't mine. I checked the house for any signs of burglary, but I couldn't find any. All windows and the back door were fully closed and locked. The front door had also been locked when I came home from work. I couldn't get my head around how this envelope ended up on my nightstand, but despite my confusion and fear, I needed to open it. So, I did. It was handwritten. This is what it said: "Hello there. Do you remember all those times that you were scared when trying to fall asleep? Scared that something might crawl through your window in the middle of the night, or that you would suddenly hear a knock on your door which isn't coming from your parents? Or maybe you were scared that that thing under your bed might creep out, not realizing that that thing under your bed wouldn't bother to show itself. It would rather just grab your ankles and pull you under the bed so it can eat you alive. Your parents always said that you would be fine and that there was nothing to worry about. That was a lie. They forgot about me. I'm that car you didn't see, the virus that almost killed you, even though you didn't know plain down, that heart attack you narrowly escaped, that shadow in the corner of your room. Still, naive as you are, you believed your parents, and so you tried to relax, and eventually you started a botherless sleep, every time again. Now you probably think that I'm kidding, because you're old enough to know that there is nothing under your bed, and that there will be no one at your bedroom door tonight. That's true, both things are not the case. I have much better and scarier ways to enter your room. I've used a lot of different methods in the past years. I've been there hundreds of times. To watch you sleep, without you knowing that I was standing right there, at your side. Watching your beautiful face when you're fast asleep. I've been chasing you. I've been so close plenty of times, without you noticing a single thing. Remember those moments when you were almost run over by a car? Those times when you pretendedly woke up, without knowing what happened? That was me, experimenting with my capabilities. Those were the moments I almost got you. I didn't want you dead then, I was just having fun. A year ago my feelings slowly started to shift. I decided that your time has come. I have been living up to this night for a long time. That's why I sneaked up so many times into your room, to watch the person whose life I'm going to end someday. You might think this is all a joke. You can't be further from the truth. I can promise you, there will be no tomorrow. Not for you. You've been on this earth for too damn long. So, what am I? Call me your doom. I've been chasing and playing with you for years on end. That time is over. Too often have I let you slip through my fingers. Not tonight. Tonight I am coming for you, and this time I will get you. I would love to wash it off as some sick prank or something like that. But how? There simply weren't any logical solutions for this. I don't believe in the supernatural. But if this was just someone trying to scare me, or someone who actually wanted me dead, how did they come into my house without leaving any trace? Also, it wasn't written in any handwriting I recognized. Genuinely scared, I decided to call the police. What the? I had no service. I never had any problems with that. Then I realized something. The intruder might still be in the house. I always kept a pretty decent pocket knife in my nightstand. I thought this was the right moment to grab it. Luckily, it was still there. Shivering but determined, I checked the entire house again, with my knife in my hand. While I was searching in the living room, my phone buzzed. It scared the freak out of me. I checked and I saw I had a text. Hyped about having a signal again, I opened it, ready to call the police immediately after. I froze. I am not in the house. Stop wasting your last hours. In the bar where it should say the number, it said your doom. I checked my contacts to see if maybe your doom has been added through a virus or something. There wasn't any contact going by that name, though. Also, it still said I had no service. How had the message even arrived? I started sweating heavily. I took a deep breath and decided it would be best to just go to bed and go to the police station tomorrow when the sun was up again. I laid the knife under my pillow. After a long time of efforts to calm down, I finally entered a troubleless sleep. I awoke to a ticking sound. I froze and listened. I thought it must be coming from one of the windows downstairs. I didn't dare to move. After a few minutes the sound suddenly stopped. For a while it was silent. Then, the ticking continued on my bedroom window. In a reflex I grabbed the knife from under my pillow. Not able to move anymore, I stayed in bed, frightened to the bone, knife in my hands. Then the ticking also started again downstairs. In an uneven rhythm the ticking was now coming from two places. After around 10 minutes I thought I was going to scream, when the ticking suddenly stopped. After that there was nothing to be heard for almost an hour. Not being able to get a second of sleep, I started getting hungry. With the fear now slowly wearing off, I headed downstairs, with my knife of course. I put on the lights in the kitchen and jumped backwards. At the end of the kitchen, where there had been a counter and some windows, there was now something I couldn't describe differently than a black void, consisting of nothing but darkness. Before I could think much about what on earth this was, something jumped out of it. It was a creature as black as night itself. It was shaped a little like a human, but it was something completely different. It had pointy claws and razor-sharp fangs. On its back were big, black wings. It emerged with a deafening growl. A second later I was screaming on the ground with this beast on top of me. In a reflex I had pointed my knife forwards when it appeared. Now my knife was deep down in its chest, at about the place where its heart should be, if it even had one. It was trying to move, but it seemed like the knife had hit its target at a critical spot. It couldn't do much more than wiggle. With all my force I rolled it to my side. Still screaming I jumped upwards. Not long after the creature stopped moving. I had killed it, whatever the heck it was. Horrified and still shaking vibrantly I tried to gather myself and pulled the knife out of its chest. Was I going insane? Or had a winged, black demon really just appeared out of a black void in my kitchen in the middle of the night? I almost started laughing. That changed when I realized the void was still there and this was actually very, very real. I was wondering if more would come. Preparing, I took the biggest and sharpest kitchen knife I had. I barely had it in my hand when the answer came. I heard a howl, like that of a wolf, but deeper and darker. The sound reverberated through my bones. Moments later a big, wolf-like creature appeared. It was white and grey and much bigger than a wolf should be. Its back was lined with ice blue spikes. Its eyes were pitch black. It didn't jump at me right away. It just stood there, looking at me like it was disappointed I was still alive. Slowly it approached me, with a low, soft growl. It seemed to be careful because of my knife. I growled back at the wolf. Yes, I growled. Not that the wolf seemed to care though. I was ready to move, expecting the wolf to jump at any moment. It didn't. What it did was way beyond what I expected. It opened its mouth, and a black thing shot out with a tremendous speed. I jumped away, and the thing scratched my shoulder. I looked around and saw a black dagger in the wall while I felt my shoulder getting wet with blood. Not even a second later I felt claws digging into my back and only then did I realize my mistake. I had turned my back to the wolf. I had been so shocked by a dagger shooting out of its freaking mouth that I turned my back on the creature. The wolf had taken its change and was now on my back, probably ready to snap my neck. I started screaming. Then things started getting even weirder. I heard a loud thud. The wolf got off me, distracted by whatever hit it. I turned around and saw an arrow pointing out of the wolf's neck. A second later a dagger hit its neck, an inch under the place where the arrow was still stuck. The wolf growled in pain, whereafter it soon collapsed and stopped breathing. Completely in shock, I looked to my left, just in time to see a blue portal-like thing disappear behind a man. Or at least, it looked like a man. It probably wasn't, but that's besides the point. It was wearing a green cloak with golden lines. In its right hand he held a big wooden bow. At his hip was a dagger. "Never turn your back on them," the man said. Baffled and completely confused I just looked at him, not saying a word. Are you just going to keep staring at me like I'm the killer, or are you going to get up? There's more coming, you know. More. I asked, not completely surprised but still very scared. Yes, that's what I said. Or do you think they'll make it this easy for you? Easy. Yes, easy. Are you going to repeat everything I say? Right, sorry, I said, trying to gather my wits. Wait, how did you get in here in the first place? Not the right question, the man said. Do you want to die? And no, I answered, feeling slightly threatened. Then get the frick up and get yourself together, the man said, irritated. Hastily I stood up. The man took his dagger and handed it to me. I am Blythe, take this. Where are these things coming from? I asked. While opening his cloak to take a big, elf-like sword, he said. That's a better question, but still irrelevant. Besides, you wouldn't believe me even if I told you. What is relevant, however, is that the thing that left the letter for you wants you dead. Now that we killed 2 of his most valuable servants, it will be most likely that he gets here himself to do the job. Also, he didn't really expect me to show up here, so he'll be extra pissed off. He hates me, you know. He'll probably take this chance to kill both of us hinds. He didn't have time to finish his sentence. A deafening roar emerged from the void. I stumbled backwards, moved by the shockwaves. The man didn't budge. Seconds later, a black-cloaked creature in the form of a man appeared. Again, it probably wasn't a man, but it kinda looked like it, so, yeah. It had no clear face or anything. Just darkness. I could barely make out its lines against the blackness of the void. Blythe seemed to easily see him though. Before I could blink, he had shot an arrow at the man, who reached out and catched the arrow just before it hit him. He freaking catched the arrow, midair, just like that. I know I've already seen enough supernatural things tonight, but still, I was baffled. The black man threw the arrow back, with more precision and speed than I've ever seen an arrow being shot with. Blythe already had his sword in hand and sliced the arrow in 2. At least I didn't need to doubt his experience, I thought. The black man shot his hand forward and darkness shot towards Blythe, who dodged it while making a roll towards the man. He lashed out with his sword. The man dodged and gave Blythe a punch in the gut, who bent over in pain. All this time I was just standing there. I knew I had to do something, but what? I didn't even know what that thing could do, or what it was for that matter. Both beings were completely distracted, so I tried to close in. Another punch followed. Before it hit Blythe, he moved his sword. It slashed against the dark figure's hand, who screamed in pain. He opened his other hand and darkness surrounded Blythe's face, leaving him blinded. He slashed with his sword to protect himself. The dark creature pulled a black sword out of nothing and stuck it into Blythe. It wasn't a full hit, because Blythe's sword blocked it partially, but he was in severe pain nevertheless and he fell to the ground. I was almost behind the dark man, ready to stab him with my dagger, but he turned too fast. He was facing me. I was terrified beyond my darkest imaginations. Looking into his eyes, or where his eyes must be, if he even had them, gave me the feeling I was already dead. Holding up my dagger, there wasn't much more I could do. Suddenly the creature moved its sword. It did it fast. I barely had time to register it. I still somehow managed to decently dodge it. It scraped against my belly. Then the being screamed. A second later a sword pierced off its chest. Blythe was standing behind him. Seconds later, his sword turned into black powder, and in shock he pulled his arm back. Clearly in pain, but still alive, the dark creature turned and his hand shot towards Blythe's gut. A black dagger was sticking out of Blythe's belly. I saw my chance. Before Blythe fell to the ground, I lifted my dagger and slashed as hard and fast as I could, with all the strength I could muster. At the last moment, the creature started turning again, but it was too late. I chopped the head off. I literally chopped its head off. The creature's headless body dropped to the ground, next to that of Blythe. I checked Blythe for a pulse, but he had none. He was gone. I sat on the ground, totally exhausted and overwhelmed by all that had happened. I started crying. I had barely started, however, before the bodies started to fade. Blythe, the dark man, the wolf and the winged creature. They all started to fade. Even the void started to slowly fade away, revealing my counter and kitchen windows, through which I could see that the sun had started to rise. After laying on the ground for a couple hours, crying and sleeping, I went upstairs. The envelope and letter had also faded away, and I had service again on my phone. It's Friday now, 15:08. This all happened last night. I'm still extremely shocked and exhausted. It looks like it's all over now. I want to talk about it, but I don't dare to tell anyone, because who will take it for real? All that's left are the wounds at my shoulder and belly. Even the dagger in the wall and Blythe's weapons had faded. I went to the hospital for my wounds, saying I had a fight. They didn't quite take it, but what should I have said? This is the only place I feel like people will believe what happened to me. So, this is where I'm posting. I have a feeling my house is haunted. It's going to be a long story, so get ready. I came to this house during the beginning of 2016. At first everything was fine, and then months later I felt like this house was weird. I was young so I couldn't explain it, but I was joking with my mom saying that my house was haunted. I always felt I was being watched by someone in my living room, my garage and my bedroom. I does not feel safe anywhere except my mother's bedroom. My first paranormal thing that happened is one day years ago. It was late at night because I always go sleep late and I always take a shower before going to bed. And when I left the bathroom and I was going to climb the stairs so I can see part of the stairs from below and a bit of my ground floor, and when I was about to take my first step to go upstairs, I saw a man with a bit coat, a hat and a suitcase, almost like if someone was going home after a long day of work. It was so realistic, and the man was so chill that it was really scary. He walked the stairs below me and he was going to arrive to where was, so I was so scared that I ran to my bedroom. I never saw his face and never saw him again. Now I regret it because I would have waited to see his faces or anything else. But he was just so chill, and it was almost like it was his house and he came back from work after a long day. Almost feel like he didn't notice me and it was him coming back to his house after work. I heard people saying that if you see that man, it means someone is gonna die soon, and my grandpa died months after this. I also have a hatch that is sealed on the floor above on the ground floor next to the bedrooms and in front of my attic. My mother has never had any info on that and why it is sealed. I will try to post a photo. I had also recently my door of my garage unlocked and opened when she is always locked. My mom thinks she forgot to lock it, but trust me, she never does. During this summer, a lot of stings were found dead in front of the bed of my mother in her bedroom. It was not just one, it happened a lot of times, but then it stopped. She was never stung by one of them, she just woke up and every day for a couple of days she found death stings. Doors, windows were locked and no holes in the wall. The people living in this house before were an old couple, but none of them died there. I also remember to have a cold wind in my shower on my body with a shiver when my door and window were locked, and it happened a couple times and then one recently. I also had a dream with my teddy bear and I think he is haunted. So in my dream, I was in an old house and we decided to pack stuff to throw away. We went to the attic with my mom and there were toys and teddy bears, and I said to my mom, we'll sort them out and throw them away, and I was looking to the left and I saw a teddy bear and his head is turning towards me. I was scared and then all the toys jumped on me and my mother and I wake up terrified. That's not the only thing I want to share. Have the same teddy bear that I had in my dream in real life. I saw it months ago in a store and I really liked him, so I decided to buy it online from the same company. But even if I find him really cute, I always had bad vibes since I had him. Firstly, when I was on my computer and he was on my bed, I always felt like something was watching me and I couldn't sleep with him in my bed, so I was so scared that days later receiving him, I put him in my attic. So it is related that I got attacked in an attic by the same teddy bear in my dream. The same teddy bear is currently in my actual attic, so it's almost like it's a meaning. Also wanna mention that the house in my dream have two identical rooms of my real house. The ground floor and living room. If someone can help me with this and have any advices or anything else, I will love to hear from you. I meet the Hat Man. And I don't know if he's a friend or a foe. My name is, but you can call me D, and I had a spinal laminectomy surgery back in 2019. The surgery was a success, but there was already a severe amount of damage done to my spinal cord. Enough damage that the stenosis left me paraplegic. I can't walk or put any pressure through my legs. I have very little movement or sensation in my lower body, so every minute of every day is spent in a wheelchair or in a hospital bed. I took my mobility for granted, often joking that my main goal in life was to never work again. I've achieved my goal, but I'd give anything to take it back. It's the single biggest regret, not taking better care of myself, living a mostly sedentary life. I completely blame myself for my condition, and I feel like a burden no matter what everyone tells me. Because I don't have any family who's able to care for me, I'm somewhat forced to stay in a nursing home until a better arrangement can be made. The food here is strictly for nutritional purposes. It's definitely not gourmet. The taste is super bland, and everything comes out of a bag or from a can. I mean, most of the time it's edible, but it's often unidentifiable on the worst days. Luckily, on the rare occasions that I have some spendable income, we are allowed to order takeout, which is nice. I have a room to myself, which I'm very grateful for. Some of the more elderly folks here have to share a room. Their memories are failing, so they hardly even realize they have a roommate. I've made friends with some of the staff, and I'm one of the longest tenured residents here. I've been here longer than the majority of the staff. There's a horribly high turnover rate. The level of care here leaves something to be desired, but every time Deck visits, they've done just enough to pass inspection. It's frustrating for sure. Being understaffed and underappreciated causes a lot of call-outs, leading to confusion when it comes to scheduling. The employees who do show up are often responsible for more residents than they're legally supposed to have. Every day, I take an ungodly amount of medications, with my med pass starting at 9 a.m. and going on periodically until 9-10 p.m. There's too many medicines to name here, but to sum it up, I take a pill to help me sleep, one for depression, anxiety, a blood thinner, and an as-needed narcotic pain tablet, among many other, less significant meds. As time goes by, I play video games on the big screen TV that my best buddy set up for me, watch my streaming services and horror movies on my laptop, or watch sports on the facility-provided 24-inch TV that's mounted on the wall. It's not too bad, but I get insanely bored a lot of the time. I constantly feel isolated and lonely. I have a healthy fear of becoming institutionalized due to being monitored around the clock. I feel like it could be happening without me really realizing it. I'm in my late 30s, but I feel like a mix between being a baby or an elderly invalid. However, I do occasionally get care packages from friends and family who aren't close enough to visit. They send me snacks, Cash App money, DoorDash, or Uber Eats meals. The best is when they send me gummy edibles or disposable THC pens. You see, I suffer from chronic insomnia, and the weed really helps me to relax and hopefully fall asleep. So, sorry for the incredibly long introduction, but I think it's important to get a feel for what my day-to-day life is like. As if that first part wasn't scary enough, here's why I'm writing all this today. Being like any other bored elder millennial, I get into the trends only kinda, way later than everyone else. I was watching YouTube videos, TikToks, and scouring Reddit when I wandered across a video and a subsequent post about the bungee challenge. In absolutely no way am I recommending that anyone attempt this. Had I thought it through a little more, I wouldn't have even considered trying. Essentially, this challenge is to take enough antihistamine pills until you black out and start feeling a sort of high. But for me, it was supposed to be like a way to hallucinate, or kinda trip. Why no? It's just a lot cheaper and easier than LSD or shrooms. I kept researching and saw some rather terrifying reports of people hearing voices, seeing shadow people, or becoming overwhelmingly paranoid. Then the absolute worst claim of all was sightings of an enormously tall, shadowy figure wearing what could only be described as a hat and long coat, with red or yellow piercing eyes. No other discernible features or characteristics, just an all-black, wispy, floating shadow. These sightings were almost always accompanied by a tremendous feeling of deep dread. Some people claimed that the Hat Man approached them and told them things, ranging from clairvoyant and helpful to inspirational, all the way to the other extremes of threatening, hateful, and haunting. Maybe even reminding you of a terrible event from your life. There were mixed reports of seeing the Hat Man even after the trip was over, and they were lucid again. People claimed to have recurring dreams of new encounters with the Hat Man. Y'all know how sometimes we watch disturbing things out of sheer curiosity, like wanting to look away, but rubbernecking at the car wreck as you drive by, if that makes sense. That's how I felt about seeing the Hat Man. It seemed really fascinating, but totally horrifying at the same time. So, I started planning a way to get my hands as many pills as I could. Again, I absolutely do not suggest doing this, I want to be very clear. So, I can ask for and receive over-the-counter medicines pretty much whenever I need them. You'll see, every day, or every other day I'd ask for a bundle, and because I have very sensitive skin, I get it with no questions asked. I'd pretend to take the pill and slip it into a baggie I kept in a book bag next to my bed. After I saved up around 12 pills, I felt like that was enough for a try. I had seen where some people were taking like 20-30, sometimes even more at one time. I was not dedicated enough to try that many at once. I just figured if they didn't work, I'd just save up more and try again. So the plan was, on that coming Friday night, I'd have the on-duty nurse put a bundle into my night meds to make a grand total of 13 at one time. I'd take my regularly scheduled medications and then pop the extra bundle once the nurse closed my door. I passed that day by flirting with a hotkener who works here. She is big time into ghosts, demons, and other paranormal stuff. She likes to tease me by telling me how an old lady passed away in my room and how, during the night shift, they see and hear unexplainable things in the hallways. I was becoming increasingly nervous waiting for my nighttime med pass. I took a THC gummy and a few puffs from my weed pen to try to calm myself. The nurse finally came and dropped off my meds. It was go time. I took everything at once with an entire cup of water. I tilted the bed into a more comfortable position and continued watching old reruns of the X-Files until the medications took effect. It wouldn't be too long, maybe 20 or 30 minutes before I started to feel everything kicking in at once. As the tidal wave of chemicals hit my brain, I felt the darkness start to envelope me, slowly pulling me under. I could still hear the sounds from the TV buried in the background, but my ears were flooded with the roaring noise of my blood rushing through my body and my steadily calm heartbeat. I felt like I was awake, but I knew that couldn't be true. I was standing in a world of blackness. It was difficult to wrap my head around what was going on. I was free to walk around and explore this vast unknown darkness that was all around me. I walked around exploring a bit. I saw some shadowy figures huddled together whispering to each other. They paid me no mind as I walked by. I could hear disembodied screams and footsteps all around me. I swear I could hear the voice of the hotkener I mentioned earlier. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him stalking me, the Hat Man. He was darker than everything else. Like I was looking into pure darkness, then seeing this entity. His silhouette was a darker shade, if that makes any sense. The Hat Man was ominously darker than anything else in this place. Here's the other strange thing, I didn't have to ask if he was the Hat Man. It was like, I just knew. Why no? He approached me slowly, and I could feel his eyes boring holes right through me. I don't think I've ever been more terrified than I was right then, but I felt frozen, completely unable to move or run away. He then spoke to me, but it wasn't like audible words. It was more like his voice being echoed into my head, like how you think to yourself, only these weren't my thoughts, and definitely not in my voice. The Hat Man's voice ranged from deep and soothing like James Earl Jones to a gravelly and demonic rumble. He would first speak to me using the soothing voice. "I know why you're here, that's good, because I don't," I thought back. "It's true what the Hockner told you. People have died here. They do stare at you while you sleep. But not you. No, you won't die here, you have other things to do." What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, starting to feel threatened. "I think you know what I mean. One day you'll get to leave here." Happily surprised, I asked, "Really? How long until I get to leave?" "It doesn't work that way, I tell you, what I want you to know." Getting slightly annoyed, I said, "That's some bullshit." This is when I got the first taste of the haunting demonic voice. "No need for expletives, you're invading my home, remember?" An embarrassed, "Sorry," was all I thought out. His voice had returned to the soothing one, only it felt like a put-on to try to calm me down. "I can't tell you everything up front. That'll ruin the fun." "Okay, so now what?" was my reply. He changed the subject abruptly and began telling me about upcoming events, rather natural, or man-caused, horrifying occurrences, unspeakable things, that were to take place over the next few months, years even. I'm choosing not to go into details here. I do believe in speaking things into existence, and I don't want any of that being held on my conscience. Just know, it's some awful shit, but basically, like things that already happen every day, so it'd be difficult to pinpoint the accuracy of the predictions. His reddish eyes then sharply narrowed, and I felt like if he had a mouth, he'd be smiling. But it felt really evil. I don't know how to describe it, but it wasn't natural. I mean shit, none of this was natural, but you get what I'm saying, right? His last message is the one that really frightened me more than anything else. "Since you decided to visit my world, I may, on occasion, visit you in your world." The next thing I remember was waking up. I groggily grabbed my phone, although I didn't really need to. It was daylight outside, and I had slept through breakfast. I calculated it up, I was out for like 10 hours straight. But I did not feel rested at all. My mind was hazy, still struggling to comprehend what I had just experienced. 5 nights later, the Hat Man would visit me for the first time on this plane of existence. I was watching TV and listening to some music on my phone. My earbuds flooding my ears with the sounds of Voodoo Child. It was pretty late, around the time when I'd start to drift off to sleep. Suddenly, his demonic voice cut through the music in my head. I visited Hendrix once. Ironically, the night before he passed. I tried to warn him of his impending death, but he ignored me. He accused me of not being real. He said I was killing his buzz man. He imitated Hendrix's voice with the last part to a squirrelly accurate impersonation. I ignored it the best I could. "I could tell you how you die," he continued. This piqued my interest a bit. "Is that so?" I responded.